everybody. Welcome to the Gapology Guys podcast, your place for leadership development based on content from our books, Gapology, IMBAR, and Speed of Purpose. And tonight we're kicking off a new series where we dive into some of the foundational pieces that everyone should know about as they embark on their leadership journey. And tonight specifically, we'll be talking about the knowledge gap. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Hey, Mark, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm actually really excited about this new series. So you had a great idea to go back to sort of the basics on Gapology, and because for us it's something that we've been talking about for over 15 years, and you probably for over 20 years. But there's new people out there all the time that haven't heard about it.
Yeah, and many of the teams and companies we work with have a workforce that's in their 20s, maybe their 30s, and they have never heard of Gapology and don't understand it. So
Yeah.
we actually have a much bigger audience out there than we've ever dreamed of, combined with, the remote workforce, the virtual workforce,
Mm-hmm.
the oncoming, incoming AI.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Right.
creating gaps like we've never seen. So Gapology is more relevant than ever, and we need everybody listening to these podcasts and sharing them.
Yep. And we're getting going on these again here. One thing so when you first said it, I'm like, oh well, we've talked about this stuff so much, and then I went back. Guess when the last time we actually talked about just the knowledge gap?
Tell me.
2018.
Yeah. Well,
We
let me
talked
tell you
about it,
that. Let
but
me tell
not
you
as a
this.
subject.
If we did the same podcast every week,
Yeah,
it
we
would be
probably
as relevant every week.
it would be.
So
Yeah.
it never gets old, and it's much needed, and
Hmm.
it's a big deal.
Yeah. So we're
So
going to go through some of these fundamentals that are really core to everything else that we've talked about in these podcasts. We're going to start with the knowledge gap. It's the first gap in the Gapology framework. So we'd like to walk everybody through this, get everybody up to speed, so everybody's talking the same language and that kind of thing. So, do you want to kick it off?
yeah, so we're going to talk about the knowledge gap. But as we studied and observed top and bottom performers, that's where we found Gapology. And we found the K, the I, and the A. We found that there was a knowledge gap, and then an importance gap, and then an action gap. And the top performers closed them in that sequential order. They didn't know they were doing it, but they did it. It's somewhat built into all of us to close the knowledge gap, then the importance gap, sometimes simultaneously, and then the action gap gets closed from that. We found that the top performers again did that. We found that the underperformers didn't do that. And that was the difference between top performance and underperformance. So we've been teaching this for decades now, right? Close
Yeah,
to it.
decade and a half now. Yep.
Yeah, but we've been teaching it for more than two decades.
Oh, true. Yep.
Yeah. So early 2000s, we discovered this by charting out again the top and bottom performers and just understanding that. But so tonight's about the knowledge gap. But again, look at those gaps again. It's K, I, and A, like the car company Kia. They pay us for each of these podcasts, KIA. But the knowledge gap is the biggest gap, and it's the gap that if you don't close it, you don't close the importance gap or the action gap. So it comes first, and it's the biggest gap. The other thing that we found is it is in today's world dramatically underestimated by leaders. We will be working with an organization and they'll say, "Oh yeah, no, they fully understand it. We covered it in that last meeting. Uh, we had it on, we had a conference call about it. Everybody's on board and they get it. And the leader then is the gap because the knowledge gap exists. We uh, we have found many times over that the team does not understand and that there has been no verification of understanding, which is the key to closing the knowledge gap. And the biggest thing about the knowledge gap is if you have a knowledge gap, you will create performance gaps in the organization, which means you will not achieve the results you're expecting. So if you have a performance gap, there's this gap you're missing, a metric you're missing, start at the knowledge gap because likely you have significant knowledge gaps in the group of people that have to execute to achieve the performance there.
Hmm.
Going too long. Sorry about that. What do you
No,
think?
no, you're good. Absolutely. I think assumptions create the knowledge gap. Leaders so often assume that just because they've said it, that people understand it. Just because they've said it, people think it's important. Because they said it, people are going to take action on it. I think that knowledge gap creates everything. Um, Anytime you're like, well, yeah, I'm sure that I was clear there, or I'm sure that they understand it. Anytime you say that, that's a big red flag. I also think that the knowledge gap is the most frequently created. So I think it's the biggest, but I also think it's the most frequently created. I think you're creating it over and over and over again, largely because of assumptions.
Yeah, that's so true. It's prevalent. We're working with an organization recently who had rolled out a new bonus program, and they were very proud of it, and they thought that the group, really understood it and were excited about it, et cetera. So as we started interviewing the group that had the bonus program, they didn't understand it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a bonus program that's not understood, there is no bonus program. They're not they're not doing the thing. So make sure everyone understands how they're compensated
Mm-hmm.
and what the bonus program is. Make sure everyone understands what the expectations are, what the metrics are that they need to achieve, and how to get there is understood. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where we found the knowledge gap so prevalent. The top leaders had their teams totally wired into the expectations from a KPI or metric standpoint that mattered for their role and how to get there. And the underperformers didn't touch it. And in that one measurement we did, it was 87% to 14%, the top performers to the underperformers. So the knowledge gap is key to top performance. If you do not achieve the knowledge gap, close the knowledge gap, you will not achieve top performance. Your team needs to fully understand what to do and how to do it. By the way, write that down if you haven't. That's the knowledge gap. What to do and how to do it. And often we're talking about the subordinates, in the organization that you lead. They have to understand what to do and how to do it. And when they're great at that, results happen. When they don't know what to do, don't know part of how to do it, it doesn't happen. So any performance gap, you're missing a metric, you're missing a KPI. Assume first it's a knowledge gap. Don't blame anybody. You're to blame. Assume first it's a knowledge gap when you're missing a metric. Go back after it, and you'll be amazed at what you can achieve when you close the knowledge gap. It gets Gapology rolling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a couple things that occurred to me as you were saying that. I'm glad you mentioned the what and the how because we didn't lay that out. So when a team doesn't know what to do or how to do it, there's a knowledge gap, and we as leaders own that. That's what you said there, and I think that's super important to understand where that ownership lies because oftentimes we're like, we train them, and so you immediately go to blame them when in reality, perhaps it was how you train them. Maybe you didn't work through what we call the habit ladder, and we'll describe that at some point. But you didn't work through that fully, where your team actually understands it, agrees to it, practices it, over and over until it becomes a habit. So understanding that process and looking back at what you did for your team and looking at the differences there can help you then to reframe how you train things moving forward.
The other thing that, yeah, totally agree with you. The other thing that leaders underestimate or overestimate is that sometimes the top performers won't get it until the second or third time they've been trained.
Yes, yes.
And they may be discounted because they didn't get it as quickly.
Hmm.
So this one group got it quicker, but the other group got it a little bit later. They may be the top performers. So don't assume that the closure of the knowledge gap quickly signifies top performance. It may not. We found many cases where the top performers got it after they got it. It took a little while longer. So the other thing that we found was that the top performers had three very distinct root solutions. That's what we called it in Gapology. Three very distinct root solutions to close the knowledge gap. The first was training, which is sort of what we've been talking about. And you've got to verify that it is understood. You got to have processes for that. The second one goes missed, though, and that was that we found that the top leaders were teachers. They spent their whole week teaching. Yeah, it was leadership, but they viewed it as teaching. So everywhere they went, everyone they talked to, they were teaching. And when you combine training at a significant level with a leader who's constantly teaching, you're closing knowledge gaps. And then we found that they also use talent to close the knowledge gap. Not only hiring top talent, being really good at interviewing, finding top talent, but also at developing their team in their talent. And so training, teaching, and talent are the three root solutions that were used by the top performers to close the knowledge gap. And they were incredibly effective with that. And Gapology, the first part of Gapology, is all written about how to close the knowledge gap with training, teaching, and talent.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to emphasize the teaching piece, I think every organization has some sort of training process. It might not be great, but they have something. But not a lot of organizations really spend time focusing on building the teaching skills of their leaders. Really great mentoring programs, really great coaching and feedback processes for their leaders. So I think just as leaders, we need to look at that. We need to look at how do we develop the teaching skills of our team members.
Yeah, in either case, we've got to assume that um, it is a key trait, a key leadership trait of top performers
Hmm.
in the leadership group is that they are teachers. They have a passion for it, even if they're not the best at it. They do it continuously. They have a passion for it. They understand the importance of it. They respect it, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
They don't quickly say, "Oh yeah, they've got it." No, let me check that out. So one of the things we found is that when we observed the behavior of the top performing leaders, and again they were teachers, they listened a lot more than they spoke. And that was a big deal. So by listening, they understood the gaps. They quickly identified the gaps versus speaking and saying, oh, yeah, they got it. The gaps are closed. I talked about it. They listened. And when you listen and observe, you see the gaps that are there, and then you can close them. They also did it without blame. They didn't blame, the team member who didn't have it yet. They listened and observed, and then they taught.
Hmm.
Not before. And by listening, you just uncover gaps that you will not uncover when you're talking. When you're talking, you're assuming everyone's connecting with everything you're saying. It doesn't happen that way. It happens when you listen and tie the whole thing together.
No, 100%. In fact, there was a episode we did, I think it was 2 episodes ago, that we did on our 10 traits of winning leaders. And
Yeah.
the very first trait that we talk about is eternal curiosity. And I think as leaders, we need to have that curiosity because that's really what drives those listening behaviors. And I wrote down listening stems from curiosity. When you really care about what somebody's saying, that's that curiosity that I think we have to have. Curiosity about them, about their experiences, the things that they're facing, curiosity about our own behaviors, about how we can best support them and provide guidance and so forth. I think all that sort of blends together. But listening is one of those things where we just need to sometimes be quiet, pause, listen, ask questions, maybe ask some probing questions so you can really get into the meaning behind what they're saying. Yeah, I think we need to do all that.
Yeah, combine that with observing the behavior of the team.
Yes.
If you're in a, an industry where you can observe behavior, the behavior of the team, just by observing them, take an hour and just observe and see what you see. It tells you how you're leading. It's a reflection of you.
Hmm. Yeah,
Think about that.
it
Just
is.
observe
Yeah.
behavior. Just
Yeah.
shut up and watch and observe the behavior of the team. We would send out notes and say in the retail world that on this aisle, on this week, these are the things you're supposed to say. Yeah, they would work if they were executed. So we would go to a store, a retail store. Um, no one would know who we were and walk that aisle and see if what we, were talking about actually happened. We would listen and observe.
Hmm.
We would spend our time there as a customer and understand it. It was very interesting to do.
Yeah.
So we definitely find listening skills to be one of the top traits of the top leaders. And the top leaders totally outperform the rest by far. They listen more than they speak. Think about that. How
Hmm.
does that reflect on you? And listening just uncovers the gaps. When you listen, the gaps are there.
Hmm.
Just settle down, relax, take a seat, don't get angry.
Hmm.
This is a reflection of your leadership. Listen and observe, and it all comes out.
Yeah. The interesting thing there, Mark, you said reflect, and it just reminded me of one of the things we always talk about is we need to look in the mirror as leaders. If your team's experiencing gaps, your organization's experiencing gaps, looking in the mirror is really the key to everything because it's usually you that owns that. But I also think that your team is your mirror. As a leader, they're the reflection of you. They're going to do the things that you're, you know, teaching them and training them and motivating, inspiring, all those things, right? I think that is really the key is that your team is your mirror.
That's a great point. You're observing and listening to your leadership.
Yeah, exactly.
Write that down.
Should be on a t-shirt.
I think I said gaps happen one
Yeah.
time. No, think about that. That's your
Yeah.
leadership.
Yeah.
You are listening and observing your leadership. It's not about them as much as it is about you. That's you. And if there's a performance gap, that's what's causing it. So the knowledge gap is huge. And again, when it's closed, everything takes off. The importance gap begins to close much easier. The action gap closes
Mhm.
and performance happens. So think
Mm.
about that.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're really good at closing the knowledge gap and preventing it from opening, you're already starting to close that importance gap.
Yeah.
Really clear there.
Yeah. So shifting gears just a little bit, we found that organizations or teams that had a purpose, a very clear purpose, where every role understood the purpose of their role in achieving the bigger purpose. And if they could speak to it and they understand what their role needed to, execute in order to achieve that, that they closed knowledge gaps at a very high level. So purpose, if your team doesn't have a purpose, think about it. What is the purpose? And can you leverage that? It can be a team, it can be an organization, whatever you operate, and how that helps close the knowledge gap by again tying the purpose to everyone's role. We wrote a book called Speed of Purpose, where we talked about how to leverage people, how to leverage performance, and how to leverage process in order to achieve great results through purpose. And much of that closes knowledge gaps and is all about knowledge gaps. I mean, if I know my role and I know how it's so important to the purpose of this organization, knowledge gaps are closed. And that's the beginning of changing everything. So we did find that to be significant. The other thing that we found would be that uh, teams and organizations with a very clear purpose, where you could walk up to anybody and ask, "What's the purpose here?" And they knew it, and they knew their role, that they outperformed the industry that they were in. So purpose mattered, and it closes knowledge gaps.
The thing I think that's sort of interesting there that occurred to me is think about the risk versus reward with this. If your team has a knowledge gap around your purpose, so if they don't really understand what it is, just think the risk there. You're never going to achieve your purpose. If they have a knowledge gap about how to achieve the purpose, what their role is in it, you'll never achieve it. There's huge risk there. And then flipping the script and saying, what's the reward? If we actually wrap that purpose into all of our people and all of our processes and the performance of our organization, if we wrap that in there, so it's super clear, so everyone knows what it is, knows how they contribute to it, just think of the huge upside to that.
Yeah, totally. Changes everything.
Yeah.
So we have found that that is of great significance. And the other thing that it does is just it brings more meaning to work. So it heightens engagement, which again will help you close knowledge gaps. Yeah, so we live in a world where many meetings now are virtual. So the team's up there on the screen and you're talking to them and teaching them something. And they're, of course, multitasking. Um, you don't really know what they're doing. Maybe it is good to have the cameras on so you can at least see them, but and that increases engagement a lot. If you do not have the cameras on, you don't know what's going on. But one of the key tactics that we've seen there is to create a culture of random recaps where the team on the screen knows that every 10 minutes or 15 minutes, the leader is going to call on someone on that screen to recap from their notes what they've got so far, what the key points were, what they learned, what their biggest takeaways were. Changes everything. Random recaps.
Mhm.
So every 10, 15 minutes in a 1 hour call, now you've got everybody engaged because they don't know if you're calling on them or not.
Yeah.
And it can be of incredible significance and it heightens engagement, which closes the knowledge gaps. So you're
Mhm.
teaching a process potentially that they have to know, and it's virtual because it has to be. But by using random recaps,
Mhm.
you can change the knowledge gap closure in dramatic fashion.
Yeah.
Brian, you do this all the time. What do you have to say?
Yeah. I do virtual classes all the time, and everything you're describing there, I'm like, that's my daily life. People off camera, certainly multitasking, because even if you have interactive pieces, you have polls, you have maybe breakouts, you have all these things, but understanding the limitations of that, I think helps. And when you do things like random recaps, it's not about creating fear or reprimand or any of those kinds of things. It's about being the leader that cares that your team understands, agrees, and is going to take action on the things that you are describing in your meeting, in your training classes, or whatever. It's actually about being an authentic leader that really does care about his team.
Yeah. So in Gapology, we teach the habit ladder, which is how to get a process to habit and where it's completed each time. And the second step there is to verify understanding, which is the knowledge gap. And leaders have to be really good at verifying understanding. And if you're just conducting conference calls, virtual meetings without verifying understanding, which is what random recaps will do, you're going to create knowledge gaps in the team. You're going to be disappointed and you're going to blame the team.
Hmm.
And it's all about you as the leader. So these random recaps, again, open it right up. And again, you can call on anybody. So, Brian, you're missing one item. Let's see. And you turn to the next person, what's he missing? And they say, oh, he's missing this. Yeah, that's what he's missing. Great job. And it creates this culture of where random recaps become this energy field, ultimately increasing engagement in your teachings of the day, whatever you're covering in this virtual meeting. Changes everything.
Hmm.
So random recaps will become your best friend.
Yeah.
And you have to let them know you're going to do it because then that changes the engagement level.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. I'm glad you said that. I was going to say, just be upfront with them. And if you establish this as part of your culture, they're going to know. And the other thing that I
And
think
you
it
want
does,
them to know.
you want them to, yeah.
You want them to know.
And the other thing I think it does is it actually rewards and reinforces paying attention and so forth. And it can make you feel good. It can make you feel good. If you have, some important training that you're doing or a message that you're teaching, and your team understands that they can repeat it back to you, man, I mean that's a good feeling. And
I
I think
guess
it,
you could offer Starbucks gift cards for the top performers of the day.
sure,
So, but this needs to be a common practice for everything we
yeah,
do.
yeah. I think there's a lot of things you can do with this, and there's a lot of people out there far more creative than we are that can take these tips, the things that we're talking about here, and make it your own, fit it within your culture. I think there's psychological safety, I think matters with this stuff. But I think you can roll it into your one-on-one meetings, which there's a lot of leaders out there who have never have one-on-ones. They just do team meetings, but they rarely meet one-on-one with their team members. I think that's creates huge gaps. But I think creating this culture where we care that everyone knows what they need to do and how to do it. I think that really matters.
Boom.
Yeah.
So the knowledge gap is the biggest gap. It's the most common gap. And if you don't close it, you will have performance gaps. You won't achieve the metrics. And if you're not achieving results that you expect, start first at the knowledge gap. That's what I've got, Brian.
Yep. Well said. Well said. All right. Well, if anybody has questions on this stuff, make sure to reach out. Contact@gapology.org is our email. Contact@gapology.org, or you can go to our website, gapology.org. Reach out that way or through social media. We'd love to hear from you. But thanks again, Mark. Another great one.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll
Talk to you soon.
All right. That'll do it from here. For more information on the Knowledge Gap or anything Gapology related, head on over to our website, gapology.org. Everyone have a fantastic week. Talk to you soon.